Hello there, all you hot listeners. Welcome to Episode 3 of Husband and Wife Talks. Today, we will be talking about WaWa, peach wine, and part 1 of our Italy honeymoon. So stay tuned to learn more about WaWa, the convenience store, and gas station. Delicious peach wine. And our honeymoon.
You literally just read off the title. Hey, Marta.
Hey, Adam.
How's it going?
It's going great.
Well, this is our final episode before we officially launch Husband and Wife Talks. This is the day before our Tuesday launch. Are you excited?
Very excited.
Very excited. So, what are you excited about this week, I guess, now that we're on the podcast recording? Yeah.
I'm excited to get onto a normal rhythm because now that we're releasing tomorrow, we're going to be recording every week and releasing the same day every week. So I'm excited for that. Should be fun.
I see you typed in the time of when we started. I don't know what's the point of what is the purpose? What were your thought process for doing that? To make sure we don't miss a certain show that comes on.
I just want to make sure our time management is up to snuff. That's all.
Okay, so what have we been up to? I guess this is how the show. I shouldn't be clapping because it's probably painful to people's ears. I know people don't like that on podcasts. Sorry about that. I always forget because I talk with my hands, and since I'm talking with somebody in front of me, I like to move my hands around, clap.
It's quite distracting,
yes.
folks.
Very and I'll try to keep it to a minimum, not hit the mic or do anything to affect your audio experience. And sorry in advance if I do. But I guess it's talk about what's been going on in our lives. We first had a graduation party for my cousin going into middle school. That was pretty exciting.
Going into high school.
Going into high school, that is correct. Yeah. It was a middle school graduation.
/ also birthday party. It was a fun mix. I liked it.
Yeah, it was very nice. We got to get baby training in because one of my cousins has a barely even 3-month-old.
5 months.
5 months old. You know more than I do.
I'm good with numbers.
I mean, normally I'm too. I'm not good with ages. I just don't keep track.
I just remember he was born in mid to late January, and it's early July.
Maybe when we eventually have kids, I'll know ages better. But when they're little toddler age, I just assume they're in the range from 0 to 2, and I don't know where to go from there. Actually, when they're 0 to 5, I have no clue what age they are. I just sort of guess.
That's fair.
Because I know, even though they're at the same age, one of our cousins is a lot larger than the other one at the same age. So it's really hard for me to tell.
Yeah, it's just how you're built and your body type and all of that.
Yeah. So we drove up to Jersey, basically, on that day. You did all the driving, thankfully. You got to deal with the Jersey Turnpike.
It wasn't too bad since we got off on the... Technically, is it the first exit of the Jersey Turnpike, or is it... Okay, because we didn't have to pay a toll because we didn't go onto the turnpike.
We had to pay plenty of tolls.
That's true.
I always wondered what's the point of the tolls going up to... is Jersey that big of an exclusivity that they have to toll for being on their fancy Jersey Turnpike? I know I grew up there all the time, but I never understood having to pay for it. Because I would have to, when I would go from my mom's to my dad's for weekends, I would have to get off exit 2. This is me and being privileged. I didn't want to take this road 295 because it took an extra 10 minutes to get there. So I hopped on the toll road so I could speed down the turnpike and get to from exit 2 to exit 1. And that doesn't seem that far, but when you drive on the turnpike, if you miss a certain exit, you're going to be going for a little while because the exits are few and far between. I guess that's just the turnpike is made to just drive through Jersey on your way to New York City because no one wants to
steal as much
stop.
Money from you on the way as possible.
Yeah, basically. What was I going to say about the graduation besides... we had baby training, so I realized that babies can be very messy, so to speak. The little baby cousin ended up slobbering all over my shirt, which I was not expecting, but I sort of was because he's a baby.
Well, it was really cute because first he had the little binky in, and then that's not when he was slobbering, but then when either the binky fell out or his mom took it out, and then I didn't realize babies can fit their entire fist in their mouth. Like,
he was fascinated with trying to accomplish that.
And he did, but then he pulls out the hand, and it's very...
In the process, there's just drool coming down. So
all over your shirt, too.
Yeah, he liked to try to bounce up and down. He really enjoyed when I did the bouncy thing, except for the issue that I was having, he likes to extend his legs, too, like he's bouncing up and down, but I was doing it near the down under region, and at one point, he almost kicked me there, and I almost keeled over. But good thing I realized where he was.
You were strong.
Yeah, I powered through. The baby didn't take me down. But yeah, that was a fun experience. We also had another experience. Your first time ever in Jersey, your experience with WaWa.
That's right. So I guess if you're from, is it mostly a Jersey thing or also Delaware and Pennsylvania?
I think it's northeast-ish. Jersey is I feel like the main.
I feel like I've seen them in
WaWa.
northeast Maryland too.
Yeah.
But anyway, I grew up in central Maryland, and I don't think there's any WaWas around there. Maybe there are now since I've moved away. But I always thought WaWa was just a gas station, and at some point, Adam and I drove past a WaWa, and he was reminiscing about how, they have the best sandwiches, hoagies, and all that stuff. Or not the best, but it's...
Is
it the best?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's the best comparatively, but on average, it's a lot better than some places. Some places have good sandwiches and then subpar sandwiches, but I feel like WaWa averages out as pretty above average. And I was really taken aback when you were just started insulting it, saying just gas station food, which I didn't appreciate because I would always mention, and I would always get fired up because I feel like you knew that this would get me fired up, so you specifically would say it.
At some point, yeah. I mean, the first time I said, it's just a gas station, how good can it be? And you went serious. You were explaining it's not just a gas station. It started off as a convenience store, and then they added on the gas station, so they really specialized in their sandwiches before they specialized in their gas. And I was like, okay, this kid is serious about the WaWa thing.
So I remember growing up, most WaWas were just straight convenience stores, because I remember where my dad used to live, there would just be a WaWa there, and I would always like to go there for sandwiches, and that's specifically what it was for, a convenience store, getting things at a higher charge, and their sandwiches, which were top of the line, in my opinion. And then they expanded their business and went into gas. They started as a store, not as a gas station.
I understand, but the thing is, when you are so gung-ho and so passionate about something that's not like politics or something super serious that you really don't want to fight people against sometimes, because then it gets messy. When you're really passionate about something else that can be a little more playful, it's really fun to poke fun at people, especially when they're like, it's not this, it's that. So anyway, and then we left early in the morning on Sunday. We had to get back to Maryland, and we realized we needed to eat something for breakfast since we had a long drive ahead of us and nothing to eat in that time in the morning. So I realized we passed a WaWa right off when we got off the turnpike. So I said, and I also needed gas. So I said, let's get breakfast there, and also I can fill up my gas. Or I guess in Jersey, the gas attendants fill up your gas, but I drove my car there anyway. So then we had our first WaWa experience, and so we parked, and I really felt like this was a perfect moment to vlog. I'm not a vlogger. If you listen to episode 2, I'm not a vlogger. I take bits and pieces of video and then don't ever piece them together. I have the intention to, so if I ever do, we'll talk about it on the pod.
The funny thing is, when we walked through WaWa, you look like a lost puppy, basically. You had no idea what was going on, what was happening, even though it was just a normal convenience store that you would see like at any normal place. But it just had a big deli in the middle section of it. Sometimes WaWa's would have it off to the side or anything. Got some iced coffee, and since it was early morning, I never had their breakfast sandwiches, but we ended up getting a breakfast. I had a toasty, like a big and toasty or something that you get at Dunkin' Donuts, but it's like
but it was better than Dunkin' Donuts because it was WaWa, right?
Of course. Okay, it was like a little ham omelet with bacon. It was top of the line. You enjoyed yours, right?
Yeah, I did.
But you didn't get the full experience of an actual, like, what they call hoagie, even though I call it subs. But you never got to experience the hoagie in its finest form at WaWa. So next time we drive up, we'll have to actually get it during lunchtime.
I would never want to miss out on a WaWa hoagie.
I got to show you the secret menu, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, and what is it, the bottom left of the screen?
Yeah, it's like a little dove that flies, and if you click it, there's a secret.
But it had two really random things. It was like a rainbow milkshake and a rainbow bagel or something.
Yeah, last time I went there was two as well, and it's like normally a dessert or like a random like food to eat. So, yeah. But the reason we were leaving early and got to stop at WaWa, had that beautiful WaWa experience, we were actually going to a winery to hang out with our friends because Alan so nicely put it in the last episode, we were moving to Denver, so we were trying to catch up with a lot of people before we go, and we decided that we wanted to go to this winery that we always like to go to in it's Bull Run down in Virginia. What actual area is it? Is it close to Reston, basically, Virginia?
It's called the Winery at Bull Run, and it's in Centerville, Virginia.
So it's basically in the area where in the Civil War the first battle took place. So
the Battle of Bull Run.
Yeah. So when you drive through, you see a lot of historical battlefields, and you can sometimes see historical monuments there, people taking tours, which I remember when we were leaving that day, I looked over to the left, and there's people sitting by like this house. I've never taken a tour of Bull Run, but it looked like they were taking a tour, and on that day, I can imagine walking around when it was like, what was the humidity, like 100% basically, and 99 degrees, that they were probably dying, and I did not want that experience to be us. That's why we sat in when we had the experience at Bull Run, but the reason we like it is mainly because Marta enjoys the fruit wine that they offer, and this occasion they actually had peach wine, which you really love.
Yeah, so peach wine, I think we discovered this winery the first time maybe a year or two ago.
Yeah, it was when it wasn't when we were living together. It was when you were living down in Virginia, the Virginia area.
So about a year and a half to 2 years ago.
Never experienced DC on the weekends. We would always go out to different areas, like away from
Avoid
DC.
the traffic. But anyway, so we went there once and we just did a wine tasting where they give you, this time the one we did yesterday was 4 whites and 3 reds, and I'm sure the one we did the very first time was similar. But then I think they mentioned that they had some fruit wines in season at that time. So we tried some, and then they had the peach wine that we tried the very first time. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. I mean, even if you're not a wine person, it literally tastes like peach juice. But if you're trying to have more adult tendencies and drink wine and get your taste buds accustomed, it's not going to do that at all.
I was going to say, if you're going to say that it gets you accustomed,
nope,
there's no chance, because it's basically juice.
But the one benefit is you can say you drink peach wine, and people might think it's like white wine
mixed with like peach.
With a little bit of peach. No, it's peach juice. It tastes like peach juice. It's pretty dangerous to drink, in my opinion, because it tastes like juice, and I'm not sure what the alcohol content is. I didn't check since we just had a sip, but
I'm assuming it's on maybe the same level as wine, because it's basically peaches that they just let ferment. Yeah. And the alcohol just releases into
But wine doesn't taste, even the sweetest white wine I've ever had is not as sweet as that peach wine.
It has a specific wine taste, which is kind of strange how a fruit wine tastes drastically different than wines or grapes.
But grapes are also fruit.
Yeah, I know, but that's the strange thing, is because Bull Run also has strawberry fruit wine, and they also has raspberry, and I think we tried both.
She said blueberry, but she said blueberry's not very good.
Yeah,
we've never tried that one.
I can imagine that's probably not the best in juice form. You don't really walk around and say blueberry juice. Like, you don't really see that in stores.
Yeah, that's fair.
Except for on their own. Blueberries are delicious, but what was
they
I
are.
Say?
I just picked with my mom 12 pounds of blueberries this weekend. We take our blueberry picking very seriously.
You came back with a gigantic bucket, which was insane. It was so heavy.
I think we split
worth.
them evenly, so we probably have about 6 pounds each.
I remember when you first had peach wine, you would always want to go back and get more peach wine. So one time we went specifically to get peach wine, thinking that it's a normal winery, so their wine should always be in season or always be there, even if it's fruit wine, not thinking that they run out really quickly. So when we first went there the first time, after the fact, to purchase, I was going to run in to purchase it, they said that they're all ran out. They sold out basically within a week or so, because people love the peach wine so much. Marta was really sad. We ended up getting the strawberry, which wasn't as good. I mean, now here's the thing. If you go from wine to strawberry wine, I think you'll think that it's super sweet. But when you go from peach wine, expecting peach wine, down to strawberry wine, it's not nearly on the same level, in my opinion. Do you agree?
I would agree.
From all your facial reactions and shaking your head, you you concur.
But from that experience, I do believe that every experience, even if it leaves you very sad and without peach wine, you learn something from it. And from that experience, we learned to always call ahead. And I don't remember how many times after that we called ahead, but at least once they were like, oh no, we're out of peach wine. And we were still sad, but we didn't drive 30 minutes each way for nothing, or for less good than peach wine, strawberry wine.
Yeah, who needs the experience of the winery? We just need the wine and get going. We don't need the actual view or anything. Which actually Bull Run has a nice view because it's on like a large swath of land by the battlefield, so you can go outside, sit on the patio area, which we did before back. That was the last time we went. We went to Bull Run. It was during, I want to say, it wasn't fall time, was it? It was when it was still colder. So I think it was last year sometime in the spring. And we had to sit out. We were sitting outside, but we were in like our winter coats because it was still semi-cold. And we got that picture where we looked like an older couple, just chilling out on the patio.
Chilling in rocking chairs, holding hands.
Basically, because we're old people at heart. But yeah. It was a really good time hanging out with our friends. We got to chat a lot. Got their food truck, actually, that they had there was actually really delicious. They had, like, jerk chicken sliders and cheeseburger sliders, which was pleasantly surprising.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the last few times that we've been to that winery, we either don't eat, we either just do the tasting or one glass of wine and just, like, sit there for a little while and enjoy the view and talk. Or I'm not sure if we've gotten like a small cheese thing at some point. And it's not like we're starving this whole time. Along the bar of the, Adam is freaking out. He's so excited right now, but silently, just to not distract everyone. But at the bar where you have the wine tasting at the winery, they have these little white, like ramekin small dishes, and they're filled with oyster crackers, I believe they're called. And they're just these tiny hexagon-shaped crackers. If you've never had oyster crackers before, they are delicious. And I think they're there to cleanse your palate in between wines, because when you're going between whites, and especially between white wines and red wines, you want to cleanse your palate a little bit just so that you don't have a very strong taste of one wine as you're trying to taste the next wine. And anyway, so whenever we go there, we usually clean out at least 2 or 3 of those little dishes they have because we are hungry going into it. And it's good to eat something as you're consuming alcohol. And it's just free crackers, and we're like, let's just enjoy them.
Especially because we only had breakfast at WaWa that morning 4 hours prior. So
more than 4. We had breakfast at 8, and we were there at like 1:30 by the time the tasting started.
So we were down in a lot of oyster crackers. We went through, I think all 4 of us went through maybe about 5 total of those little scoop things.
Oh, scoops, not 5 plates.
Yeah, 5 of those, they had to refill them. We definitely did.
Oh,
I went through at least 2 on my own just because they are delicious and addicting, especially when you're drinking wine and you want a different taste to go through. And speaking of different taste, I remember there's a white wine there that's named after the owner's daughter, I think Delaney. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they make a combination wine because I think it's a mixed wine, so they didn't really have a name for it, so he just named it after his first daughter. But unfortunately this year, this wine smells pretty poor. It smells like mowed lawn, I guess you could say. Maybe even worse, like mildew lawn, kind of.
In their description, so in the wine tasting, if you've never had one, they usually give you some sort of paper or laminated sheet that describes all the wines you're going to taste, and then some description of what you can smell, the aromas you can smell, and then what kind of tastes it leaves in your mouth. Literally, one of the descriptions for the aroma for the wine was wet clay.
Really?
Wet clay, I promise. That's what it said.
There's something you want to be smelling as you down a drink. And that's the thing that affects you when you're smelling something. It affects the taste of it. Even though it went down relatively smooth, I couldn't get past the smell of that wine for some reason. It didn't smell that great. Apparently, according to the person that was doing the wine tasting, apparently the year prior, it smelled like flowers, and then this year it smelled like wet clay, apparently, and kind of wet lawn. And I was wondering, is this like the owner's interpretation of his daughter, that she originally smelled like roses, and then when she turned, I don't know how old, 8, she stopped showering, so she started to smell bad? I don't know.
Straight from the source, though, I just looked it up. The Delaney exhibits a clear, pale lemon appearance with aromas of freshly cut grass, wet clay, and petunias.
But that's not the one that says it has the girth to handle lemon chicken or things of that nature, is it?
No, I believe that was a different
Yeah, I think that was a different
white
one.
wine. That was the Traminetti. I'd never heard of that white wine.
We go to a lot of wineries, but yet we're still not fancy enough to know the wines or understand the tastes. And the thing that is great when going to wineries, we never thought about this until right now. But when we go to do wine tasting, Marta really loves the white wines, and I love the red wines. I don't like white wines, and Marta doesn't like red wines. So we essentially get double our money in the wines that we do like. Even though our friends mentioned we probably could just pay for one wine tasting, and I do the reds and you do the whites. We never really thought of that. Maybe it would be easier on our bank account if we did that.
I don't know why we haven't. This literally happens every time where I try the whites and I'm like, this is good, and you don't like them. And then I try the reds, and then after one sip I make a very strongly disgusted face. And while the employees that are helping administer the wine tasting are making direct eye contact with me, and I'm making this grimacing face like a little child, it's quite embarrassing. But sometimes, to be fair, when you taste something that you really don't like, it's really hard for me, especially, to just keep a poker face.
You have no poker face.
I have no poker face.
In anything, really.
Yeah.
You play cards, and as soon as you get the cards you need, you're like, yes!
I don't say yes. Not always.
Not always. Yeah, but as immediate as you take a drink of red wine, you look over at me, take your glass, and just pour it into mine, because you're not having it. At least you tried it, though. That's the benefit. That's the good thing.
I did try it. I was open-minded.
You're trying to adjust your palate, maybe get into reds, because I hear that a lot, that slowly people, as they get older, they adjust more and start liking
peach wine
the reds.
forever.
Okay. You just like the juice.
Just give me juice. Well, I did joke, on the wine tasting menu, they also had very conveniently listed all the wine bottles you could buy and the wine per glass that you could purchase there, and also random other food items and beverage items. And one of them was apple juice, and it was $1. And I joked that I should just get the apple juice for $1 because, just like the peach wine, it's very sweet and fruity, and I would save a lot of money.
You could have just bought the apple juice, brought in your own little travel size of vodka or rum or whatever, poured it in there, and called it a day. It would basically been the same thing.
I don't get my wine fix, though.
You just said you were going to buy apple juice. You're not getting your wine fix when you buy apple juice, babe.
That's true. That's true.
But the main thing that we're, for this episode that we're thinking about doing is that during that whole discussion with our friends while we're sitting around enjoying wine, getting a glass of, because Marta and I got a red glass of sangria and Marta got a white one just because it was so hot out. So we decided to get sangria and just sit with our friends and chat for a while, chat about our honeymoon. So we figured to kind of do that here because we were reminiscing about it and we thought it was a good thing to talk about our experiences because we went to Italy. We went to Rome, Florence, and up north to Verona by Lake Como. It was fantastic honeymoon, if I do say so myself. I really enjoyed it. Not because Italy's amazing and all that jazz, but I was with the best woman in the whole wide world, you, Marta. It was. I personally loved in Rome seeing all the historical sites, the Rome Forum, the Colosseum, the Pantheon, St. Peter's Basilica, the Vatican. I love seeing all the ancient structures and walking around learning more, seeing the Sistine Chapel, which was amazing. I mean, I loved it all, basically. When you go to Florence, it's more of a laid-back vibe. The city is a lot smaller with less people, so the walks aren't as long. And then Verona, where we got to sit back and relax. So I was thinking maybe we go through some experience that we really enjoyed and maybe some tips that we had if you go to Italy in the future. You want to start with anything off the top of your head?
One of the first things that comes to mind, I think this was the second day we were in Rome, because the first day we did the Vatican. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of an all-day thing because we did the museums, and then we went to St. Peter's Basilica and all of that. So we just did all of that in one day. And then we went to, actually, one of my coworkers recommended a restaurant in Rome in the Trastevere or Trastevere neighborhood if you are going and really need some recommendations. And it was called Dar Poeta.
Wasn't that also in Rick Steves' book?
It was also in the Rick Steves book. So there were a lot of tourists there, and you could tell. Because it was... So a lot of restaurants are touristy, and you can tell because they're in the very main touristy area. So right by the train station, right on a main road, etc. But this was in the middle of the alley, and we had to walk pretty far from the main road.
And this was by the Colosseum. Did we mention that?
It was not by the Colosseum.
No?
The one by the Colosseum was the day we did the Colosseum. This was the one when we did the Vatican. We walked along the river south of the Vatican, and then we walked through the alleys.
Yeah.
So they had really good pizzas. Mm-hmm. And also they had really delicious Nutella calzones. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a huge calzone, fresh
I
dough.
I forgot about that.
With probably 3,000 calories worth of Nutella. It was, and then so they had a small and a large size.
Thank God you ordered the small.
And we were pretty full, but I was like, oh, my coworker really recommended this. And I looked up pictures online, and it looked delicious. And I like Nutella in a reasonable, sometimes excessive amount, depending on the mood. But we decided that since we had walked a lot that day, that we would just try it and stuff our faces on our first full day of our honeymoon. And it was huge. She brought it on, I'm trying to think of the size of the plate, like a pretty medium-sized appetizer plate, I would say. And it was full. It was falling off the edges. And she just brings it. And I look up at the waitress, and I'm like, we ordered small. And she's like, this is small. So then I look up at her, like, very confused. And I say, so how big's the regular? And she, like, expands her hands to double the size of what the calzone that we got was.
I think the rough size was the size of my laptop, which I have like a 15-inch laptop. So like the lengthwise of a laptop, I feel like that's the size that she mentioned. So that would be that long and then even thicker, which would be insane. And I think I was mentioning, oh yeah, I'll eat it with you. So maybe we should get the large because I thought, oh, it can't be that huge. Little I know in Italy, a lot of things come very large. The pizza, you don't really get individual servings of anything. Oh, goodness. Somebody across from us, I guess, is messing around with something. Or something fell in our cabinets. I don't know. Scared me, but I'm okay now. You okay? I'm okay. The next thing I remember, sort of another restaurant experience. Do you remember... I forget exactly what the restaurant's name was where we went to. It was recommended in the Rick Steves book. It was by the Coliseum. It was a little farther up away from the Coliseum. We had a 10-minute walk, it felt like, from the Coliseum. So after we experienced the Coliseum, the Roman Forum, all that jazz, we were trying to figure out, where do we want to go eat? If we want to go eat by the Coliseum and then walk to the metro and then take the metro back to where we need to go, Roma Termina. Which apparently I didn't know this, but a lot of the metro in Rome actually hits a lot of the main places that you want to see. So that's an option for people if you don't want to take a car, which I recommend not driving around in Italy because that seems like it would be insane to me because it doesn't seem like they follow any rule of law when it comes to driving. It's sort of make your own lanes and get to where you need to go, and that's about it. But yeah, take the metro. I would recommend walking around doing it that way. But we went to this one Italian spot, and it was very Italian because the owners didn't speak a lick of English. I know one of the owners asked if you spoke English or what was the other? Was it French? Was that the other language?
I think they spoke some French.
Yeah, they asked if you spoke French. And so we were trying to figure out what we wanted to order. We knew we wanted to start with water. Marta had to go use the restroom, which is where everything happened, because whenever Marta leaves me, I get myself into situations,
That's when it all
so to speak.
went down.
So the lady comes over. I'm trying to say aqua fresca, no gas, having just still water, basically. And she starts talking. I think she gets my drift. She asks if, do I want a fresca, cold? And I'm like, yeah. next thing I know, I'm thinking she's talking about the water. Next thing I know, she's coming over with a gigantic 40 ounce of beer, their Italian beer, and sits it next to me. And then she comes over. I guess the Fresco was more for the beer mug that she was getting. Instead of just a normal glass, she was getting a beer mug that was frozen. And she pulls it out and sits it by me. And I'm just looking really lost and confused because I did not think that I ordered that. But apparently I did. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to send it back because it'd be even more awkward. So I just opened it up, started pouring as Marta walked out. And she looked at me like I was crazy and asked what the heck happened. And I was like, I don't know. I guess I nodded too much when she was talking to me. So she ended up giving me a beer, which was actually turned out pretty nicely. But of course you had to then order the water because apparently I did it wrong.
I think I was more surprised. I wasn't surprised that you had beer because I know you enjoy beers, like certain types of beers from time to time. But I was just more surprised because at that point, we have been talking about all the wine in Italy. And Italy, I don't really know much about beer in general, but I feel like more people think of wine in association with Italy than beer. And before I went to the bathroom, like, we weren't really talking about what we're getting yet. We were just like, oh, we want to get a water. So coming back 2 minutes later and you had a 40-ounce beer, I was like, wow, that, I guess, sounded really good, but then the story made sense and it was funny. But the food there, I think the food was good. I can't quite remember what we ate.
In Rome?
In that restaurant where you got the huge beer.
You got
Oh, I remember. Oh, goodness. This is
a poor decision on your part. Because you wanted to order the ravioli, and you were looking at the wrong part of the menu, which was the back end. For some reason, there's another portion of the menu that had the same stuff as the other menu, but for some reason you started looking at that. The lady then...
Well, if it's the wrong part of the... If they're not going to use that part of the menu, why don't you take it out? Like, I pointed to what I wanted in the menu on that page, and she just flips the menu to the other pages, and I'm like, I guess we're not allowed to order from there? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I think you ordered something with what? Lamb intestines? I think you were like, it was like rigatoni with lamb intestines.
I think it was ravioli. No, it wasn't even ravioli.
It was like rigatoni, I think. And I looked at you and I'm like, you really want lamb intestines? You're like, sure, why not? And I was like, you are not going to be eating that. I ordered some like stuffed shell type deal. But I knew you were not going to eat that, which came to fruition. You just ate the pasta, which was still pretty good. And then you asked me, like, afterwards, like, oh, I really wanted the ravioli, but I didn't see it on the menu. And I looked at you so confused. I was like, babe, it was in the menu because I flipped back to where it was, and it was just on the opposite side of where the pasta was. And you looked baffled and kind of upset because you got lamb intestines instead of ravioli, which you really wanted. Which we eventually got ravioli later on to satisfy your hunger for ravioli.
Nothing against lamb intestines. I just wasn't in the mood to try something that crazy because it was our second day and I just wanted some good pasta. And yeah, I don't know. And it also wasn't... Sometimes, in my opinion, when you eat something, your experience is also dependent on the presentation of the food. So even if it looks, maybe it sounds weird, like you're getting, for example, lamb intestines, but it has a nice presentation and yada yada. So you're like, oh, I'll try this. And then maybe it doesn't taste the best, but you're like, oh, but it looks nice. It didn't even have a good presentation. It was, I'll leave it to the imagination, but it was...
Pasta on a plate.
Pasta on a plate plus the lamb intestine. Anyway, we've already given them enough credit. Or enough time on the pod.
You're still bitter about it.
Just open your eyes, girl, when you look at the menu.
So other things we did in Rome, I guess, before we go on to what we did in Florence. We did like the Heart of Rome walk, Rick Steve's audio guided tour, which was really nice. Got to see a lot of statues that you don't normally come across in the main areas. Get historical context about some piazzas. It was really nice. I just enjoyed walking up because I remember we were doing that and we passed the Pantheon. And that's where I got wide-eyed and like, oh my goodness, this is amazing, type look. Just because the Pantheon is such an ancient-looking building and it's so large and it's right beside just Italy architecture that's more modern now. And we actually ended up walking through there and got to see how large it was. I just thought it was pretty rad, in my humble opinion, and I really enjoyed Rome for that part. And then the next, didn't we see St. Peter's Basilica like the third day?
Yeah, when I was talking about how we saw both the Vatican museums and St. Peter's, I realized we saw the St. Peter's Basilica later because the day of the Vatican, we realized that it's better to get in line early to the Basilica, so we decided to plan to come back at an early time to beat the line. Because once we finished the Vatican Museum, I think it was late afternoon, so either the St. Peter's Basilica was closing soon, or I think we also walked by and there was a pretty long line. So it wasn't worth it. But
and they say that the line can sometimes be 45 minutes to an hour, and it looked like the line was even longer than that. So when we went to it the day that we did, we thought we were going to be waiting for a long, long time. Because we didn't even get there as early as we wanted to.
Yeah. But when you were talking about the Heart of Rome walk that we did, when we were planning this trip, we wanted to strike a balance of doing touristy things and seeing the main attractions, especially since Adam had never been to Rome or Florence, and I had been in the past, so I had kind of done the touristy thing, but I really thought it was worth seeing some of the more famous sites. But we were trying to figure out, do we want to do a guided audio tour so that we make sure we hit all the all the sites, but not get lost ourselves? And then we saw varying levels of prices and packages for different tours and stuff. But then we were looking online if there were any independent tours, and that's how we came across the Rick Steves app. I forget what it's called. I think it's called Rick Steves Europe or something.
I think it's Audio Tour Europe.
But it's very cool because you can download a bunch of these different, I guess, podcasts where he talks about the city, but also he has several different ones where it's kind of a walk. So in the app, there's a map of the city or the neighborhood that you're walking through, and they're all the spots, the points of interest are numbered. And as you're listening to the walk, it's perfectly timed with the actual description of the different sites. So you don't have to keep pausing it and being like, oh, where am I? And then when we had to walk for a longer span of time, I remember it was kind of just like background music, and he talks about some other different sites and things to note. So I thought it was really well done, and also it was free, so we did it at our own pace, and we enjoyed it.
It gives you a lot of historical context, too, as well, which was really nice. Walking through a lot of places in Rome, and especially when you... because one would be the main feature of that audio tour, like that one section, you'd be staring at some statue, but they would also make reference to things to the right of it or things to the left of it, and trying to find a certain thing in that specific room, whether it's a painting or another statue, and then also give more historical context. And you could go, like Marta said, at your own pace. You could stop right there and then go explore, because a lot of times Rick Steves would have it where you would hit the main points and you'd be done in an hour, but he would say in the beginning this would take like 2 hours, basically because he knows that you're going to end up walking and viewing other things. Even though at certain points, like in Florence, when we went through like the gallery, what is it, Gallery Piazza, is that what it's called? No, all the paintings in Florence. Am I doing this wrong? What is it called?
The Uffizi? Or the Accademia?
Yeah, one of them. I always forget. But you're better at remembering names and numbers, apparently. So, but yeah, we would walk through and you hit certain things, and then he expected you to walk around. But at a certain point, when we saw so many paintings, I think we got a little tired of seeing every single painting that was of not note. So just by random painters. But yeah. I thought that was a good call by you, Marta, to get the audio app and being able to walk through our own pace, so we don't have to purchase every single, because when you go to each site, there's audio tours. I think you have to like purchase the headphones and little things to type in the numbers to get the information about it. Because that's why I realized in the Vatican, a lot of those numbers I think were for the audio tour, so you could punch it in and then they would talk about it. But I couldn't even imagine with all those numbers if we would be punching in all of them. So it was kind of nice that he sort of keeps you moving in the direction, so you're not stuck in one place all the time. If you just want to go by his tour, you still get a lot of history and knowledge from that, which I really appreciated.
Yeah.
And St. Peter's, we were lucky enough when we went, the line was only As we mentioned, thought it was going to...
Was it 15 minutes?
Yeah, it was about 15 minutes.
Beginning to end.
We thought it was going to be like 45 to an hour long wait. We got up to the security line rather rapidly, and then I got nervous that maybe because I saw people sitting on the side, because they also mentioned on the audio tour, like, oh yeah, you'll see angry people on the left or right because they're not wearing the proper attire. And I got away before with wearing like a short sleeve collared shirt and then like shorts that went past my knees, but I was still worried that maybe today there would be a grumpy guard and would want to kick me off the line because I was not dressed as appropriate. Because a lot of times you hear is you're supposed to cover your shoulders and also cover your knees. So I know, Marta, you had like a shawl just in case you needed to wrap your shoulders or wrap your knees, whichever one they pointed out.
But I was wearing a dress that covered my shoulders, but it came a little bit short of my knees, and I had that shawl wrapped around my waist just in case we walked by a security person that really strictly enforced the dress code. But we walked by, no one really said anything, and then I put it away, and then we walked through security, and no one really mentioned anything. And I think it either depends on the security guard, but it also, I think, is more left to the individual, at least in our experience, because there were a bunch of people that were wearing tank tops and short and like relatively short shorts, but there were also, I think, a good majority of people were respecting the dress code.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's good that people respect it.
When there was two women in front of us that were wearing short shorts and a tank top and they got through, I was like, okay, I think we'll be okay. But I remember walking into St. Peter, it was that and the Pantheon, which are like 1A and 1B, with just pure amazement of how...
1A and 1B, like your favorites?
Yeah, in Rome, or just favorite sites to see in general of our trip. It wasn't my favorite experience, so to speak. We'll get to that more, but... it was just amazing walking in and seeing chapels within a chapel and how large the dome was, and being able to, because we ended up, didn't we go up walking the dome so we could get pictures over top, which was just even more amazing. And it was just massive. There was, 20-foot little statue thing in the middle of the chapel that looked tiny because the dome was so huge. It was something else, so to speak.
Yeah, it's really quite magnificent, and unless you see it in person, it's so hard to imagine what it's like from pictures, because I think a lot of times from pictures we have a general idea of what something looks like, but you don't really have an idea of how grand it is with all the artwork and all of the just art, murals, everything. And then we did a walk to the top of the dome in St. Peter's Basilica, and that was just a stunning view of both the Vatican, but since the Vatican is such a tiny, I guess it's a country, but it feels more like a little town. But we also saw all of Rome, which was very cool.
Yeah, Vatican's really tiny. I remember we were walking through, I don't remember, it was the hallway of maps. Was it part of the St. Peter's Basilica? Where it had a lot of, it was like the hallway.
I think that was at the end of the Vatican. I think that was part of the Vatican museums.
Was it?
I'm not positive though, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Rick Steves called out to look to the right, and you could see like the inner courtyard of the Vatican and Vatican City, and it's really tiny. And I guess it's supposed to be a tiny place where the Pope lives, basically. And I never knew this, but apparently Pope in St. Peter's Basilica Piazza, he would give services every Wednesday, which is kind of insane and pretty cool that he would do. Probably has a lot of security to do that. And then they were saying that people line up like all the way down the block just to be a part of that. Is there other things we should mention about Rome before, or should we get into some tips about Rome? Because I remember I mentioned the tip of, the metro system is actually set up pretty well to experience all the tourist places. I know we bought like a 48-hour. Oh, that reminds me of that. We bought the 48-hour metro ticket, and yeah, you can say it. Hold on. But we bought the 48-hour metro ticket so we can go unlimited routes. We realized we didn't use as much as it cost to go from place to place, so maybe look into, if you're planning on booking it across the metro constantly, then it would probably be worth you getting the unlimited for that amount of time. But if you're just going touristy from one place to the next, stopping for a long time, walking around, because you can walk, what we did in Rome, we could walk from where we ended up to our apartment again. It would be a longer walk, but as the concierge person mentioned, even though you're walking in Rome, you'll still see things that are not very touristy, but it's still beautiful and has like ancient history to it. But you just don't, it's just crazy to me that you're walking through this modern area, then you see like ancient statues and things erected, and you don't see as many touristy people around it just because there's so many things, and it's amazing. And I think Marta wants to now, based on the metro, wants to get back to a story that she really wants to tell us all.
Yeah, so we have the 48-hour metro card. Reminded me of something funny. So when we did our tour through the Vatican Museum, we had been listening to the Rick Steves Vatican Museum audio tour. So we started kind of where you walk in the entrance, and then we went down all these different hallways and here and there. And then we ended at the Sistine Chapel, which is kind of like the ending of the Vatican tour anyway. So it was kind of the culmination of the whole thing. And if you're not familiar, the Sistine Chapel was, the ceiling of it was commissioned not by a pope, but for Michelangelo to do. And it is stunning. Like, even if you're not a religious person and you're not really into all of that, just looking at every single piece of art and every person up there, it's crazy. And it's painted on a ceiling. So Michelangelo painted a like, I can't even, sometimes I paint a wall and I'm like, whew, I'm tired.
When have you ever painted a wall, babe?
Not a full wall, but in my parents' old houses, I would help out
with a paint roller and everything.
With a paint roller, yeah. Okay. And it was a vertical wall, and I was there for maybe 5 minutes, and then I'm like, my arm hurts. Can I stop now? A lot of misconception about that too. That painting that I found out is that a lot of times people think he laid on his back to do the painting. But in the audio tour that we're listening to, what he did, he was basically standing up that whole time painting. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine how his back felt after that, or how like his arm felt. And it was basically the way he painted. It's obviously wet paint, so it's probably dripping down back into his eyes or onto his face. Yeah, which doesn't seem like the best, especially because back then they didn't care about lead poisoning or any of that jazz. Yeah, and it took him 4 years to paint it. So a 4-year job. Yeah, and he did one half of it, and people thought it was amazing, and then he looked at it and said, this is not good enough. So he did the second half, but if you look at the second half, the back end portion, a lot of the features and a lot of the people are a lot smaller, and there's a lot more going on in the scenes because he's trying to get more detail into it, which is crazy to me that he looked at the front end and said, no, this is not good enough, let me do it even better. Yeah. But anyway, back to the story. So we were finishing up our tour, and we were trying to figure out where we were going to go next. And I think that's when we decided to go to that pizza place that we mentioned earlier, Dar Poeta. And we looked at the map, but unfortunately there was no metro. The way that the walk was from Vatican City to the restaurant, there was no metro line because the metro kind of went in a U shape around that restaurant, so there's no really efficient way to get there by train. But we still wanted to make sure we kind of had all of our belongings and stuff before we left. So I turned to Adam, and I remember giving him the tickets, the train tickets, and they were just little, like 2x3 inch, like the normal ticket that you would use. Yeah, if you ever rode the metro in DC, it's basically like the but the purchased metro punch tickets. Yeah, like the size of a business card, and very thin, flimsy paper. But it had the date that we purchased it, the date and time, which was very significant to the second half of the story. So keep listening. So it had the date and time that we purchased it, which was also helpful because then 48 hours from that point, we knew that that was the expiration date of that train card. So anyway, we're, finished with the Sistine Chapel. We're walking out. We're making sure we have everything before we start walking across the town or across the city to the restaurant for lunch. And I'm like, oh, Adam, do you have the train tickets? And he's looking through his pockets, left pocket of the shorts, right pocket of the shorts. I think you were wearing a nice collared shirt that had a front pocket, and I think you had something in there. Left shorts pocket, no train tickets. Right shorts pocket, no train tickets.
And I felt so bad because a lot of the wrong stereotype about me is that I lose a lot of things.
Yeah, and it was just unfortunate that that happened. Oh, but also another thing that we didn't mention, but in order to be as safe as possible and try to prevent being pickpocketed, we wore these little, I think they're called passport pouches, and the best
neck
way...
pouches? Is that what they're called?
Neck pouches. Honestly, if you Google passport pouch, it shows you, also called a neck wallet. But anyway, it's just this small pouch that you can carry your passport in, or some larger bills, just to clear your pockets, because a lot of pickpocketers will go for pockets for men, especially if you have something in your back pocket.
So
anyway,
yeah, watch out if you're in a touristy area. A lot of the information that Marta scared me straight with is don't be so helpful, because apparently I'm too helpful. So if some older lady or woman or man is asking for help, that's a lot of times a way to get you distracted so they can go into your pockets.
Anyway, we're going to finish this story now, or I'm going to finish this story. So, long story short, Adam checked the shorts and the neck wallet, passport pouch thing. No train tickets to be found, and we were like, oh my gosh, we lost them. They weren't that expensive, but still, it was frustrating because we had just bought them 3 hours ago for 48 hours. And then I don't remember which one of us, but maybe you mentioned that you were taking stuff out of your pockets in one of the very first courtyard areas of the Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned, it could have fallen out there, or we kind of just both came to the conclusion, or Adam came to the conclusion.
I remember that I took out my headphones because at the time,
your headphones.
I was trying to listen to the Rick Steves audio tour app as well, along with you. So I wanted my headphones out, and I remember that I put the tickets right by my headphones. And if you've ever taken your headphones out of your pocket, a lot of times they like to take stuff with them just because they get tangled.
Pulls everything else out.
And I was like, you know what? That's probably what happened, because that's the only other time I went into my pockets. So I figured that would be the time that they fell out. So we decided to, when we got to the end, we had to run all the way back through. What? What's the matter?
Nothing.
You're giving me a look like I'm doing something wrong. What am I saying wrong?
I was just finishing the story.
Yeah, I'm just trying to explain my side, what was going on.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, continue then. If you want to continue the story, continue the story.
I just thought it was really funny the way it all went down, because you realized that you pulled your headphones out, and that's where there was a very slight chance that the tickets were there, and then we went back there and literally retraced our steps the way that we did listening to the audiobook, and we got a little discouraged because we didn't see them at first. And then I think Adam said something like, whoa, what's that? And it was like a piece of trash, or it wasn't trash, but it was something on the grass or something. And I looked down and I thought it was tickets, but it wasn't. Anyway, so we kept walking, and then we see 2 white pieces of paper that look like train tickets from afar. And we were like, no, that's probably trash. Like, what's the chances that we retrace our steps 2 hours later and we find it? But we picked it up, just to be good Samaritans and pick up other people's litter. So rude, throwing trash out on the sidewalk. And it was our train tickets. They were a little trampled, not like totally ripped up and stuff. Yeah,
mine had a little shoe mark on it.
Yeah, like we probably dropped it, stepped on it, and kept walking. But what are the chances? And it was so funny. We were so ecstatic after that. It was such a good mood. Like, babe, we found your train tickets, and we saved however many euros, not having to buy more. So it was really funny. Maybe it doesn't sound as funny over audio, but in the moment when you lose something, you retrace all your steps and find it, it is amazing.
Yeah, especially because I was so mad at myself and so upset that I screwed something like this up and lost something, especially because we just purchased it like a little while ago. And I was like, okay, I'm going to hang on to this. I'm not going to lose it. And that's the first thing apparently that I did. I dropped the train tickets on the ground in Vatican City, and if we left, that would have been more of an issue of getting them. But good thing we decided to retrace our steps and figured that would be the best spot. But I think right now, since we got through all of Rome, everything we did in Rome basically, right?
Yeah.
We're going to cut this off. We're going to do a 2-parter just because there's so much that we did in our honeymoon.
And we want to give it justice.
Yeah, we want to give more information and of things that we did and be able to flush it out instead of trying to rush through everything that we did. Maybe we're a little ambitious with this one, but we're trying to keep episodes within an hour, so to speak, because we respect your time. So I think we're going to wrap up part 1 of our Italy honeymoon experience, and then later this week, probably before next Tuesday will be a different episode, but I think we kind of want to get a part 2 sometime this week as well for people to hear, just because this is our release week and we figured we should do something special for y'all. Yeah, we sort of winging it right now, but
love it.
We sort of fell into this, so I think we're going to wrap it up here for part 1. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at HotPod. You can join our Facebook page, facebook.com/HotPod. You can go support us on Patreon, patreon.com/HotPodcast. You can also support us in plenty of other ways by just giving us a review on iTunes. If you're listening to us on iTunes right now, just scroll down the feed, hit that 5 stars, write us a review. It'll help us out greatly. We're also on Google Play, Stitcher, Overcast, any other place you find podcasts. We should be there. Eventually, we're going to get to Spotify. But yeah, thank you for listening. This has been the first week of Husband and Wife Talks. We should be here next Tuesday.
Arrivederci. That's Italian for goodbye.
Oh my goodness, you're so cute. All right. See ya soon. Bye.